Hello, everybody out there. That's you. Well, good evening, everyone that's listening in. Kia ora and welcome. It's great to have you joining us. And thank you so much for coming in here to this live stream this evening on YouTube. July is Juvenile Arthritis Awareness Month, and it's not only here in New Zealand, but also across the whole world. Now, here in Aotearoa, Kids with Arthritis has been supporting children, young people, and importantly, whole families for over 20 years. Connecting children and families who have juvenile arthritis or one of the many other types of autoimmune conditions is so important. And knowing that you're not alone on the journey is a key to helping your mental wellness through a child's chronic illness. So whether you're a child, a teenager, young adult, or a parent, you are really welcome here. Now let me introduce myself. I'm Sheena Harris, and I've been volunteering with Kids with Arthritis for 7 years. I am mum to Kaylin, who was diagnosed with juvenile idiopathic arthritis 8 years ago. So I understand some of what developing resilience looks like for the whole family. This evening, we're excited to have Sue Abernethy with us, who has not only professional training and wisdom to share, but also from first-hand experience in understanding resilience through raising her 8 children. Just going to find the next page. So Sue completed her training as a counsellor at Bethlehem Tertiary College in Tauranga, and Sue is convinced that people get stuck in life when their patterns of thinking become unhelpful. Current research affirms that our brains are what is called plastic. Plastic simply means that our thinking can be remolded. So Sue is here this evening to give us all some insights that she hopes will enable us to take charge of the one big thing that we can each have control of, our thinking. If as a result of this webinar, you would recognise that you would like some additional support or work, then you can contact Sue directly, and you can find her at flourish.coaching20@gmail.com, and we'll give that later on again, and there'll be a link later on from this webinar, following this webinar. Okay. So just so that you know, there will be an opportunity to ask questions and to make comments, and you'll see the box lower on the right-hand side of your screen there to do that. And so during this live webinar, you'll be very welcome to pop those comments or questions in. But for the first part, Sue is going to be delivering some content that we can listen to and learn from. And then we've allowed around 30 minutes later on for questions after Sue's presentation. So we do ask you just to simply bear in mind that this is a public forum and it is being recorded for future access as well. So I think that's all I have for introduction, and Sue, it's over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sheena. Thank you so much for asking me to present some of this information, and welcome everybody to my home. This is actually quite a treat to welcome people from all over New Zealand. Feel free to type in the box at the bottom where you've joined us from. Excuse me while I just sort out my cushions. All right, so yes. As Sheena said, I completed my training through Bethlehem Tertiary Institute, and that was a 4-year part of my journey. But prior to that, I had begun a lot of my own searching for really wisdom to live by. So that did happen to lead me to find a counsellor who has counselled for over 40 years in New Zealand. His name's David Riddell, and he lives in Nelson. And if you would like any more information about his material, which I have drawn extensively from for tonight's presentation, then you could get in touch with him on his website called Living Wisdom. All right, then, let's get started. The presentation for this evening is titled Building Resilience. And resilience can be defined as the ability to recover from setbacks. And I think of it somewhat like a tree might bend in a storm. And when the storm passes, the tree will return to its upright, healthy position. And part of my search with regards to mental health has led me to believe that living in truth is a healthy way to live. We call people delusional who are not living in reality. And so with that, I just want to start with two truths that are true. So they are, the truth about life is that there will always be setbacks. Unfortunately, very few, if any, people get through life without encountering setbacks of some nature. So a major life task is learning how to manage and get through, and where possible, recover from these inevitable setbacks in life. So truth number one for today is life, part of your life will be about setbacks. And the second truth, that we accept what is. When we try to live in opposition to what is, then we encounter strife. And so there are some things that we can change and some things that we can't change. So tonight I'm hoping to help you with 4 things in particular that you do have control over and that you can change. And the interesting thing about this too is that it is entirely up to you as an individual. So whether you're a parent here tonight or a child, you as the parent are responsible for your own thinking, and that is within your power to change. And it's the same if you're 8 or 80. You have control over what goes on inside here. Other people don't often have control of what goes on inside your head. So in that sense, none of us are powerless. And the thing that we all have control over is our thought life. So there's 4 things that I thought we could just jump straight into. 4 things that will enable you to build resilience. Now, I see there's somebody signed in from Christchurch. That's lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us. If anybody's out there and wanting to reply and you're under 15 years old and you know what this is, would you type it in the box if you've seen one of these things before? Okay, we had these. These came before these. And now we have these. And this is what we used to put soundtracks on, or songs. And then, of course, we advanced to these. And now everybody carries their soundtrack around in their pocket. So anybody typed in there? Nope, I don't see anybody answering. Well, there's a cassette tape, old-fashioned cassette tape, and it was used for recording a playlist or a story or something like that. So my question to you tonight, point number 1 is, what's your soundtrack? What have you got on your playlist? What's playing over and over in your head? What song have you got on repeat? And is this song helpful? So I'm thinking, it's true, and any mental health professional will agree with this statement. How we think about what happens to us is the biggest factor that determines what our life will be like. Many people fall into the trap of thinking what happens to us determines what our life will be like, but that's not actually the truth. The truth is that how we think about what happens to us makes all the difference. And so that explains why some people can have horrendous life experiences and actually yet still live a very happy, fulfilling life. And it really it really comes down to the story you're telling yourself is the story that you live. And so what are you telling yourself? I think of the illustration of the man in a wheelchair who was asked, so what is it like to be limited by being in that wheelchair? And the man said, oh, no, I'm not limited. This wheelchair gives me freedom. And see, he had developed a mindset that enabled him to enjoy life, as opposed to a mindset that could have caused him to think about a limited life. So another analogy to think about is life deals us a set of cards, and we each get a different set, and we typically don't get a choice on which cards we get dealt. And some of us get dealt more suffering cards than others. I've noticed this about suffering. It's very seldom fair, and it's very random, and it's seldom deserved unless it's suffering that we've brought on ourselves. Like, I guess you could say, if we eat too many chocolate bars, we might land up suffering from diabetes or something like that, and then we could say that that was self-induced suffering. But mostly suffering comes to us randomly, and we get this set of cards dealt to us, and our challenge in life is to play the absolute best game possible with the cards that we've been dealt. So if you're telling yourself, I must have done something to deserve this, well, that's not true. Suffering is random. Nobody deserves suffering. And if you're telling yourself, or the song title you've got playing in your head, life's not fair, and it should be, well, I'm sorry, but that's not true. Life isn't fair, and life is unlikely to be fair. I know most good parents are trying their very best to make life fair as much as possible for their children, but even the best parents can't be fair all the time, because life's not fair. The sooner we accept this truth that life isn't fair, the easier it is to live with. If we have this song playing in our head, my life is miserable because of arthritis, well, that's not entirely true. The arthritis part of your life might suck, but there are many other good parts to a full life. Could you change your song to a song that might be titled, My Life is More Than Just Arthritis? I'm wondering if anybody who's watching might like to offer a possible song title that they think it's time to get rid of. Or if you're watching this later, get a pencil, jot some down. Or if you've noticed a song title that's played as a family song that you think it's time for that song to be discarded, or hit the delete button. It might be the song that's titled, It Sucks to Be Me. Or the one that some people like to have on their playlist, Everyone Else Has Got It Better Than Me. And then if you've thought of the songs that maybe have outlived their use-by date, you could come up with some new songs for your playlist. A song title that might sound something like, I might struggle with arthritis and the effects of it, but I can still have a great life. I wouldn't want to swap my struggles for anyone else's. Pain can be an incredible teacher if we let it. We don't wish it on anyone. But it is interesting to note that some of the world's most creative people whose memories endure have, in fact, themselves endured great illness of either body or mind, or both. I think of people like Picasso, Frida Kahlo, Van Gogh, very creative people. Martin Luther, a very spiritual man who suffered deep, dark times. So my challenge to you is, check that playlist, because the story you're telling yourself, or the song you've got on repeat, is what will become your reality. Delete those that aren't helpful. And if you're young, get a parent to help you and think about, what kind of playlist is going to get me the life I want? And remember, just like you probably can't do root canal on your own teeth, sometimes these playlists can be a bit tricky to discover, and a good counselor will help you get to the belief underneath that's rocking your world. So that was number one, what's on your playlist? Number 2, and this will be just a little visual. Number 2, I have here a mango and a banana. And if I was to ask you, which one is better? Well, cognitively, one isn't really better than the other. The only determining factor would be your taste buds and whether you like them or not. So this is to illustrate the point that comparison is a useless thing that we can easily slip into. Good mental health professionals, again, will tell you comparison ought to be out of bounds in your mind. Comparison and comparing your life to others' lives actually does you no favors at all. And that's where I talked about acceptance earlier. When we accept what is, then we've overcome the first hurdle to living the life that we have been assigned or given. We accept, and that enables us to become determined to be the best version of ourselves possible. Well, you know, what's the other option? Accept what is, or spend your life fighting it, and then you have more than one battle to fight. You not only have arthritis, but you have this non-acceptance, which really doesn't aid your joy or your enthusiasm for life at all. So comparison is the thief of joy. You can always find people better off than yourself or worse off than yourself, and really that's just a waste of precious emotional energy. When you notice comparison thinking, say, I don't allow that thinking. So that's number 2. Number 1, what's the soundtrack? Number 2, comparison is out of bounds in my mind. Number 3, when we suffer, anxiety can easily become what ought to be an unwelcome companion. Anxiety is on a spectrum, and so down the one end of the spectrum we have anxiety, which is debilitating and makes our life smaller and shrink. And down the other end of that spectrum of healthy thinking is what we would call healthy caution. So we need caution. Caution helps us to prepare for, let's say there was some catastrophic event. We have a emergency box in our cupboard with water and other supplies that we might need. So that's healthy caution. Worrying about it every day possibly happening, well, that's simply stealing our joy and stealing our energy for today. So worry is a fake comforter. We think that by worrying about something, it prevents that from happening. But really, the truth is, the only way to get through troubling times in life is to prepare, to develop resilience now, so that when the struggle comes, we're equipped. And peace comes when a mind is reassured that it has adequate resources. So we instead of telling ourselves, what if this happens, what if that happens, we tell ourselves, if that happens, we'll get through. We'll ask for help. We'll get support. Nobody knows with absolute certainty what's going to happen in the future. And so it's kind of also a waste of emotional energy to spend that with anxiety. Anxiety deceives us into believing that the more we worry about something, the safer we'll be able to keep ourselves. But really, that type of anxiety, once again, it just steals our joy. The best way to face an uncertain future is to build more and more resilience in today. For example, you might tell yourself, when hard times come, I'll get through it. I'll ask for help. I'll look for new information. Worry is like a rocking chair. Gives you something to do, but gets you nowhere. Tell anxiety that its services are no longer required. You're giving it the boot. And remember too that it's our brain's job to keep us safe. And sometimes our brain can get a little too efficient. And so we might need to reassure our brain that we've got this. We're okay. We know what to do. We'll get through. Healthy caution is good, but anxiety has a way of stealing your joy. So we had the soundtrack. What have you got playing on repeat in your head? We had comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. And anxiety. Too much worry. Too much worry is of no use to us. Finally, and kind of in summary, the fourth point I would like to prompt your thinking around is guarding your enthusiasm. So enthusiasm is a resource, and it can leak out if we're not making conscious efforts to guard our enthusiasm. So the three things that I've just mentioned, those will help to guard your enthusiasm. But here are a few more. Realistic expectations and goals. If you suffer from a chronic illness of some sort, there are going to be some things that are unrealistic for you. There will be other things that are realistic, expectations that you can reasonably have of yourself. The unrealistic ones need to be let go of. And we need to keep our focus on what are realistic expectations for me at this stage in my life. Another thing that can help you guard your enthusiasm is to not allow poor me or victim thinking. Victim thinking keeps you stuck and doesn't enable you to grow. What do I have power over? So the opposite of victim thinking is, what do I have power over? I may not have power over that, but I do have power over this. Discover what fills your tank and make sure that that can happen regularly. Enthusiasm is like a tank that needs regular topping up. And even as a parent, if you are constantly giving out of your tank and not topping it up, then a saying that I like is, if your outgoings exceed your incomings, their upkeep will be your downfall. So as a parent or even as a child, if you are constantly giving out more than is coming in, that's going to lead to discouragement and a loss of enthusiasm. Yes, your life will be different to other people's lives if chronic illness is part of it, but it's your life. Another way to guard enthusiasm is to be careful who you keep company with. My suggestion would be to limit time with people who are more drain than gain. A little phrase just to keep in mind. And then it's helpful actually to ask yourself too, am I more drain than gain? And just because you might need more care, I'm not referring to that as being drain. It's what kind of an attitude do you bring to a situation? And as Henry Cloud, a well-known author, would say, what do you leave in your wake? When you leave the room, what do people remember about you? What sense do they have of you? Good self-awareness question to ask. Another thing to keep in mind when guarding your enthusiasm is when your have-tos outnumber your love-tos, then you might also begin to struggle a little bit. It's very important for us to have fun and joy and pleasure regularly in our lives. So surround yourself with people who have a growth mindset, not a poor me mindset. And that's about guarding friendships and keeping people in your close inner circle who are gains more so than drains. I guess in closing, what I've been trying to encourage is the idea that you are resourcing yourself first with the positive soundtrack that you play in your mind. You're making or learning to make your mind a friendly place. You're not going to allow comparison thinking. You're going to keep a check on anxiety and whether it serves you or no longer serves you. And you're really going to think about ways to guard your enthusiasm. I think that's probably enough for tonight. So thank you so much for joining and being with us tonight. I hope that you found some things helpful. If I've raised any concerns that you feel need to be addressed with a counsellor, you can, of course, get in touch with myself, probably via Sheena Harris or the Quans Network. But we're going to open it up now to some questions if there are any, and I'm going to invite Sheena back here with me.
Thank you, Sue. That's been a fantastic presentation. I hope you find that really helpful, everybody. And it'd be great if you can bring in some questions that you might have that has been coming to you as you've been listening. I'm just having a little look there. Well, something that I wanted to just, come back to with you, Sue, I noticed that you were saying that, coming to that acceptance that life isn't fair. And sometimes we're dealt with things that just happen that seem to be just not fair. And yet as children, and my children have said to me repeatedly, oh, but that's not fair, Mum. And I think for children, it's really difficult to get that place of acceptance that we are dealt a different set of cards. And life looks different for us on different days and different people. So, can you just sort of revisit some of that? How can we come to terms with accepting that, that unfairness around being dealt the card of having a chronic illness in childhood? Have you got any thoughts to that?
I guess one of the things I might say is that as a parent, you might look for occurrences in life where you notice life's not fair.
Okay.
So, and then you might point that out to your children so that they notice, things aren't fair for everybody. And another way to teach emotional resilience is a truth that says learning to make friends with disappointment will make me a great person. So disappointment is also part of our lives, and it must be deeply disappointing on a number of levels for a child who struggles with chronic pain. And learning to help them find ways through that is obviously the challenge of parents who care for chronically ill children. But life is unfair in different ways. And that was one of the things I said about a song titled I Wouldn't Want to Swap My Struggles with Someone Else's. And well, that's because we develop ways of coping with the struggle that we have. And sometimes if we lived in someone else's shoes, we might discover that, yes, they also struggle and it's not great. I don't know if that really answers it. But certainly it is a challenge as parents to teach our kids that we do live in a world that's unfair.
Absolutely.
And it is a fact of life.
That's it. Yeah, thank you. And something that we found through Kids with Arthritis that we offer is support for families. So never feel like you're alone. Please don't ever feel like you have to struggle through if you're not sure where to go for help or how to get some support that Sue was mentioning. It's a really important part of the journey for children and for parents, that that you're not alone and that you can reach out and ask for help and support. It's not a sign of weakness. This is not about just being able to toughen up and battle it through. Not at all. We realise this is a very real and difficult journey, both not only in the practical needs of the day-to-day in managing a child with arthritis, and for children coping with going to school and dealing with all the things that are going on there. We recognise that is a really difficult challenge. So we don't want you to be alone, and you can reach out to us at kidswitharthritis.org anytime. So there's a question just coming in here, and
Shelley, I've had a little read of your question, and I don't pretend to be an expert, but I might want to, the first question I might ask is why does this child want to do more, even though the consequence can be more illness? So adults are charged with the task of helping children regulate their emotions when they're young, and then as they get older, they should be able to do that themselves. And in a sense, you as the parent will have the insight to know that the consequence of this wanting to do more could possibly be more long term. I'm not sure if that's what you might be alluding to, but the reason I might ask why they want to do more could be around it's the only way that they can feel like they belong in a group, because the group are all doing that thing which they are willing to ignore their pain to be able to belong. Is that what's motivating this desire? I'd be wanting to ask some questions about why are they wanting to put themselves in harm's way, and then seeing if there's a way to get around that. Is there a way for them still to socialize if some of the other children can be encouraged to do a different activity? Or what are the other options? There's always other options, and it's a case of finding them. So I'm not sure. Do you have something to say about that?
It's certainly a really common thing that we hear when we're supporting families. We have a lot of families who say, you know, their child just sort of keeps on going and going and going, or they will, you know, take part in an activity at school, you know, the cross country or something, when they know, because it's sometimes just, it's more difficult to say no. And sometimes it can feel, you know, that embarrassment, that, you know, frustration, that, you know, deep, you know, place of just like, but I should be able to do this. I want to be able to. And somehow, you know, a lot of the young people will just sort of carry on. And they know the pain that they will be in the next day or subsequent days, and sometimes, you know, week or longer, when a flare may come up triggered by, you know, just overdoing it. And our children are really good at recognizing their own thresholds and their benchmarks, and they know when they're going to overdo things. And so that's why, you know, one of the things we've done at Kids with Arthritis is putting together a schools video that you can order from us, and you can just do reading around, take it into your school, and, you know, make connection with staff there and show them the video to help them understand a little bit of what it is like for your child or teenager with arthritis, and, you know, some of the ups and downs that go on with that. So it's really helpful to know that then staff in the school will understand better, and they might recognize, hey, hang on, are you really okay for doing this today? Have you pushed it too far already? So again, having some support team directly with your child beyond just yourself as a parent can be another way to help them perhaps not always, you know, push the boat out too far and then, you know, reap the consequences.
I think another thing that comes to mind is for a lot of children, being different is a big deal. And so that might be the feeling they're trying to avoid. And so they will overdo, even though they know the consequence might be pain. And so somehow, as a parent, managing the possible long-term consequences, you know, but also helping them to deal with, you are different. You'll be able to do different things, but there'll be some things that will have consequences for you, and let's talk about that. The second truth was comparison is out of bounds in my mind. I had the banana and the mango. Neither one is better. It's just personal opinion. And comparison is the enemy of a healthy mind. So that's my second point. Thank you for asking, Kwesi Janie.
While we're just waiting for some more questions, please do keep those questions coming in. It's great that there's a few of us here gathered together online, so keep those questions coming in. It's really helpful, and something that you may ask will almost certainly be reaching someone else's mind, even if they haven't articulated the questions. So we do join together in understanding some of the struggles and difficulties we're all going through with this. I really liked, Sue, what you were saying about being able to choose what we take control over. And, you know, JIA and other autoimmune conditions, you know, can often feel, not only for the child who's, you know, in the middle of this chronic illness, but for the parents and the whole family, for siblings, and, you know, even grandparents can be very strongly impacted by this. We can't control, you know, this thing. It can come, the flares come unexpectedly, the onset, we didn't see it coming. It can take a long time for diagnosis. And procedures come, and there's all sorts of tests and procedures and, you know, medication that gets involved, and the child and the family there's just no control. We just cannot control where this thing is going. I can very much relate to that as a parent myself, when I couldn't see, you know, the journey ahead, and every day was a real struggle, and it's difficult. But I really liked how you were saying that we can actually, there are ways that we can choose what we can control. Do you want to just maybe touch on that again?
Yeah, I think we can, of course, go to the extreme of control, and that's unhealthy too. So I'm not talking about that kind of control, but I am talking about thinking about the things that are within your control. Is a much healthier way to think about when life is out of control. A very important question that's part of a counselor's toolkit is, what meaning am I making of this? And so when things are out of our control, one of the conclusions that a child or adult can come to is the world is an unsafe place. And so that is actually true. The world is an unsafe place. But there are many things that we can do to lessen the impact of that. And this sort of evening and this topic in particular is a great way to prepare for the inevitable hard things in life. Yeah. So, yes, we don't have control over a lot of things, but we do have control over what we tell ourselves in our head. Yeah. We do have control over the attitude we choose. And I find Nick Vujicic very inspiring, because I can't even begin to imagine what it must be like to live life with no limbs. And yet he appears to live a content, happy, successful life. So, there's somebody who has overcome what we might call stink thinking. And powerlessness is not a helpful mental health idea. When we are doing powerless thinking, that's not good. And you might want to see a counselor if you think you are that way inclined. So, yeah, definitely there are some things we can control. Yeah.
Thanks, Sue. I think that's really helpful what you're saying, recognizing that we can get some professional help outside. I think very often parents of children with arthritis are so focused on the medical aspect of a lot of this. And we recognize that either our children or ourselves may be struggling mental health wise, but again, it's kind of on the back burner because we're just dealing with, the processes and the medications and the decisions and the pain and, day-to-day living. But you've touched a few times this evening, and I think it's really helpful to remember that we can reach out to counselling support, and you're available. Can you just give us again how we get in touch with you if we want to directly be in contact with you? Because I'm guessing people don't need to come to you here. We're calling and speaking with you from Hamilton in the Waikato, but people can be in touch with you online.
Sure. So you could get hold of me either via email at flourish.coaching20@gmail.com, or you could text me. I hope somebody's got a pencil nearby. Maybe somebody could type it in here. 022. No,
we'll put it in at the
end. Kaylin might be able to put it in. 022 098 1734. And of course, I would be available for Zoom sessions as well. And I work both with adults and children. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
The Western model of medicine focuses on the physical aspects of well-being, but the Māori model of the Te Whare Tapa Whā is the four-walled building, and that involves your spiritual well-being, your social well-being, your emotional well-being. Did I say spiritual?
Yes.
Okay. Spiritual, emotional, physical, and social well-being. So we kind of are a building with four walls, and all of those walls need to be well maintained to provide a sturdy building. So I like that model.
That's a great picture.
Yeah. So physical wellness is just one aspect of our wellness. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
And even if that wall's not ideal, if the other four walls are pretty good, you're going to have a good structure.
Yes.
So,
that's
worth thinking about.
Good. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in, but we'll just hang on for a few more moments if you want to take this opportunity to ask your question to Sue. And I do want to say as well, this is the second webinar that Kids with Arthritis have brought to you. The first one is on our website as well, and you can access that at any time. And that was about on nutrition and food, and being able to help our children and young people keep well as best we can through nutrition. So that's also there for you. And look, we'd love to bring you some more webinars as we get the opportunity to do so. So if you've got ideas, topics, things that you'd like to see Kids with Arthritis bring to help educate you and equip you, then please do let us know. And hopefully there's been some children or young people tuned in this evening. We'd love to hear you. Get onto the Instagram page of Kids with Arthritis, or jump onto our Facebook group. Perhaps, you know, carry on some conversations that you feel you want to bounce off following this webinar. It's just great to keep connected and know that know that you're not alone. So yeah, we're here for you, and yeah, we're here for one another. That's the most important thing as well. So I think we'll probably bring things to a close, and yeah, we really appreciated your time with us this evening, Sue. Thank you for coming along and joining us. Thank you all for being here with us, and yeah, we look forward to saying hello to you at the next Kids with Arthritis event, hopefully somewhere near you. Keep connected and take care. Bye bye.